Skull.
Skull. Hello.
Where are we at now? Episode 6?
Episode 6.
Wild.
That is insane.
It's wild.
Oh my gosh. So today, what we are talking about is hex versus honey.
Mm-hmm.
So this episode, what we want to do is kind of talk about when to hex, when to honey.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're also going to get into a little bit more like practical application, what that looks like for us in our practice. Yeah. So
First thoughts?
First thoughts.
Yes.
So going into this, one thing that I really wanted to talk about was every woman's right to choose.
Yeah.
And practical application in everyday life as well as in your own practice. Yes. So this goes back to our very first episode, Do What Thou Wilt, right?
Yeah.
So every witch has the ability to choose and knows when it's appropriate to hex and when it's appropriate to use a honey jar. That all goes down to your intuition, your gut instinct. Your power as a witch is rooted in your ability to make that choice. And no one has the right to take that choice away from you. No one has the right to second guess your choice. At the end of the day, you are the one who knows for your situation which is the appropriate choice or action to take.
Or if either of them are.
Or if either of them even are.
Yeah.
You know, it may be a situation where maybe you need to do more self-work. You know, maybe it's a different choice that you need to make. But at the end of the day, you're the only one that knows.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only one that knows. And don't ever let anyone, take that away from you. One thing that we had talked about when we started talking about doing this episode at all was the fact that there is so much second guessing in the witch community. Some witches don't believe in hexing.
Mm-hmm.
Some witches think that that's inappropriate or wrong, but no one has the right to tell you what to do in your own practice.
And I also think this, it can be a touchy situation because, again, like you're saying, there's people that believe that when you are practicing, you should never do anything that has any sort of direct impact on somebody else.
Right.
Is that inherently wrong or right to think that way?
Who knows?
Yeah. But I personally do believe that if you're putting an intention out to shape perception of somebody else, that you have to personally be accountable for repercussions that'll happen from that.
Absolutely.
I think that it shouldn't be done loosely or without serious thought and intention behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're the one that knows what situation calls for that type of action. It's not something I do a lot in my practice, but it is something that I have incorporated in the past. Every time I have incorporated a hex, it has been a situation that has called for it. And I went into it not lightly, because you never can when you're doing something like that.
But I don't think you should ever go into any part of your practice lightly.
Well, no, that's true. Yeah, that's
so
very true.
Really, are we discussing something that different?
Yeah. It's just when you start considering okay, maybe this situation calls for a hex, you have to sit down and really think through it, right? Does this situation actually call for that?
Yeah.
Am I prepared for the repercussions, like you mentioned? How do I want to go about it? What is my goal out of this?
Yeah, and I'll be perfectly honest. In discussing this topic with Tori, I don't think that I've ever done anything that falls remotely near a hex. I am completely ignorant in that side of practice, but I've done things more so for self-protection.
Mm-hmm.
I've never necessarily felt the need to go to hex work, you know?
Yeah.
Is that to say that it's something that I think is terrible or taboo or will never touch? No, I don't. But it's just something that I've never felt not drawn to, but
felt called.
Necessary.
Yeah, felt called to
I've
do.
never felt it to be necessary.
Yeah. And like I said, there's only been, I think, twice in my life that I have felt the need to do it. Felt the call to do it. Felt like it was necessary for the situation. Was it the first thing I tried? No.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're the only one who knows what's the right choice to make.
And I feel like this topic pisses people off and gets people riled up.
Oh, it does.
You know, for
it
sure.
does. It definitely does.
But do we tell people that you shouldn't do... I mean, yes, there is a lot of telling people what they should and shouldn't do in their practice.
People do that all the time.
But if you haven't gotten the clue by now, that's not how we roll.
No,
you know?
Not at all.
So, yeah, I very much agree that it is you do you, but think through it.
Yeah.
And prepare yourself for what can come from. I mean, because that's what I see magic as, is a manipulation of energy.
Yeah, it is.
And even if you're doing something that is not directed towards somebody else, like a honey jar or hex, I think that it's
still a
silly to
manipulation.
think that what you're doing isn't going to influence anybody else.
Right, because that's what magic is.
Yeah.
It's an influence of energy in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a positive influence, whether it's a negative influence, whether it's transmuting energy into something else. All of that is influencing.
And even if you're just doing work to influence yourself,
that's still
it's still going to influence the people around you.
Exactly, because they're going to see those changes that hopefully you make as you're influencing yourself.
So is it not just all the same
It's
thing?
all the same thing. It's all the same.
That's what we think. What do you think?
What do you think? Yeah. Tell us in the comments down below. Everyone's practice is going to be different, right? We're not making this video to show you how to hex somebody. That's not what the aim of this is.
I don't know how to tell you how to do that.
I'll tell you how I've done it before.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what we want to do is start the conversation that, one, no one should be telling you what to do in your practice. And if anyone ever does, maybe really take a really good, long second look at that person and realize that your practice is rooted in your power. And your power is rooted in your ability to choose. In your ability to access that place of knowing. And no one can do that for you. No one can tell you how to do it. You just have to be able to access that part of yourself on your own. But just like no one should allow you or second guess you, you should also not second guess others.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was thinking yourself.
And yourself. If you
tell us about it.
If you feel called to do a hex, listen to that part of yourself. Don't second guess yourself. Sit down, to Alyssa's point, sit down and really investigate that. Really feel that out. Why are you being called to do this? Does the situation prompt it? And at the end of the day, if you come to the conclusion that your gut instinct is right, then investigate that further. But trust yourself. Trust your power.
Trust yourself, witch.
Trust yourself. What we kind of wanted to explore a little bit further was the light path versus the dark path.
Yeah.
Tell us your thoughts on that.
My thoughts on it is that there is a gray path.
Yeah, and we're both on the gray path. What does the light path mean to you?
I think when somebody says light path, to me, I think more healing work. Growth, personal growth.
Otherworldly.
Healing, light, light.
Yeah, just light. To me, the dark path speaks of hedge work, speaks of Hexing speaks of poison, speaks of shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what that means to me. And there is no right or wrong path. Alyssa and I are both middle of the road. Like we've said, you know, we're both on the gray path. Most of the stuff I do probably tracks more down the dark path than it does the light path, but that's not to say I don't ever do any other work on the light path, because I do.
I think that the experience that you are going through is what warrants the practice.
Agreed.
Like, I can't envision, for me personally, again, saying that this is the only type of work that I do.
Yeah.
Because every time I find in my life that I say, this is something I don't do or will never do,
it changes.
The world has a way of saying, oh, really? Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
So here's your push to explore the thing that you said, nope, not for me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's a terrifying place to be in all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why I try really hard not to be like, I'll never do that.
Yeah. Because you never know.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to do and what you're not going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I never would have thought that plant work was going to be something.
Yeah.
I just thought, I have a black thumb.
End of story.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
That's the end of that. And that's changed for me over the last year. And I feel more called to that now than I've ever felt called to almost anything besides the deity I work with. Her call is so strong I could hear it with fucking headphones on. But you can never know what your path is going to look like, because at the end of the day, as people, we are constantly evolving. Hopefully. Please tell me you are.
Yeah.
As witches, we're constantly evolving. So our practice is always going to be evolving. What you do today is probably going to look very different than what you did a year ago, or what you're going to do a year from now. Hopefully. Don't be stagnant. Let your practice grow just as you grow as an individual. When I started as a witch, I was very light path. Like, I didn't, and I think probably most people are. Most people aren't drawn to witchcraft for the dark path. That's probably wrong, actually. There's probably a lot that are drawn to it because of the dark path. But your practice reflects who you are as a person. And probably over the last 6 years, my life has been drastically different than it was the previous 10 years.
So I think even individually, not just like light work is these kinds of practices, dark work are these kinds of practices.
There's
I think
categories that fall into both. Yeah.
Well, I think within all of them, there's...
Right. Because, I mean, think about it, like, working with plants seems very light, right? Very light path.
On the surface, yeah.
But then when you get down to...
In the dirt,
feels very dark pathy. Feels very, let me just wipe soil all over my face.
And there's even plant spirits that feel very underworldly.
Exactly.
You know, that they have to go through being frozen and buried, and like they have just like this super heavy dark spirit about them.
Yeah. Belladonna has that spirit.
Yeah.
It
feels damp and...
Yes. She feels very heavy and very, like, dark and, like...
mysterious.
Yes. Yeah. That's not light path.
Yeah.
But almost anything you do could fall into either one.
There are no shadows without light.
There are no shadows without light. If you're only drawn to one specific path,
you do you.
You do you. That's your choice. No one's ever going to take that away from you. People might try. We're not one of them. We're not ever going to do that. For us, we walk down both paths simultaneously.
Let's start talking about some honey jars then.
Yeah. So whenever it comes down to the situation at hand, whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're working through that calls for an additional push, whether it be a honey jar, whether it be hex work, whether it be something else entirely. What you want to do when you start thinking about which direction you want to take, is thinking about what your goal is,
Mm-hmm.
right? What do you want to get out of this? Because your goal is going to determine which path you should go down and which practice you should use. You should also think, are you wanting to gain anything out of this situation? What is your ultimate goal?
When approaching situations that you feel that you need to, again, manipulate energy,
Mm-hmm.
that is not just your own energy. It does take a lot of self-reflection and shadow work to determine what path do I want to take. You know, is this something that I feel like I want somebody to see things in me that they're not seeing, or this is an attack on me and I need to end it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my mind goes when I think of honey jars versus hexes.
I agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Is it something that somebody is just disagreeable with me?
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody is straight up coming for me.
Mm-hmm. Or those I love.
Yes. Quit the shit.
Yeah. When it comes to making a honey jar, I know both of us have made tons of honey jars. What do you typically like to do? Like, how do you like to go about making yours?
So I usually start, again, when it comes to doing any of these things, I like to start with like a journaling or a reflection and write out, what do I want to achieve? Who is this going to affect?
Yeah.
Who around them is it going to affect by relation? What could be ramifications or repercussions of this?
Yeah.
And then also I like to make sure that I'm being very clear and specific about what exactly I want to, what parts of me I want to sweeten them to, or what parts or things do I want them to see that maybe they're not seeing right now.
Yeah.
I have found before when I've done honey jars that felt really unsuccessful, for me, it doesn't, it felt like it hasn't worked in my practice when I'm like, I just want you to like me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
you have to be more specific about it.
What do I want them to like about me?
Yeah.
What do I want them to see about me?
Yeah.
But also understanding, like, if I want somebody to see in me that I am, like, let's just say, for example, super, like, hardworking and dedicated, repercussions that could come from that is now they may have even more expectation of you. So
and know
are
that you can
willing
do so much more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you willing to
fulfill
do that?
Yeah.
So understanding, being very clear and specific, are you ready to take on the role of what you like you can't
are working towards?
Yeah. Things that I have like included in honey jars, written messages. So even writing out a list of these are the qualities, okay? Maybe it's like a petition to somebody, you know, like there could be a scenario that's happening that you want them to see your perspective of the scenario and they're unwilling to. Maybe writing a letter to them, like explaining what you're feeling, what you're going through in that scenario.
And putting it in the jar.
Yeah, putting that in the jar. Using photos, hair.
Yeah, I love using hair.
Poppets, I really like poppets. But like if you, let's say, like I was discussing earlier, if these are the qualities I want that person to see of me, I can create a poppet of myself, even maybe write down those qualities, put them in the poppet or write them onto the poppet. You could add blood to the poppet, you know, like bringing life to, this is essentially the physical representation of the person that I want them to see. Yeah. And putting that in the jar.
I like that. Yeah. A little baby poppet.
A little baby poppet.
Little baby poppet.
Or even creating any other sort of like talisman, you know, that just represents what your intention is.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. What about you? Any other things you'd like to?
I love to use dried herbs in mine. Like a lot of dried herbs in mine. If I want someone to be sweeter towards me, besides honey, I'll probably also include lavender. Probably also include sugar. Before I've used mugwort, depending on the situation. Like there's so many different things so many different herbs that I've worked with. Today I brought Irish moss that I'm going to put in mine. I love working with Irish moss. It's one that I'm called to outside of patchouli, which I also brought. Because of course I'm going to put patchouli in it.
I can't wait.
I know.
Are you growing?
I know.
I'm gonna give you a little snippet.
Listen, I'm also gonna be growing patchouli.
Are you?
Yes.
Patchouli twins.
Patchouli twins.
You just tickled an idea though.
Yeah.
That I want to note on further.
Yeah.
Honey jars don't have to just be for other people.
Right. They can be for yourself too.
Yeah.
And they don't have
that.
to just include honey.
Yeah.
I've used molasses before.
Agave nectar, I was just thinking.
Yeah. I've used sugar water before.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a honey jar, most of the time I want to use local honey because I want it to be local to me, to be more specific and make it stronger. Because to me that makes it stronger of a honey jar.
Absolutely. I agree
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
But yeah, I've used molasses. I've used agave. I've used wildflower honey. Yeah. There's so many different things you can use. It doesn't have to just be straight up honey.
Traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
here's the recipe for honey jar spell.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, think about, like we've talked about, think about what your goal is. Think about what you want and tailor your jar to fit that.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be in a jar. I
No.
mean, shoot. What if there is...
Shoot.
Let's say, like, what if there's a connection with, I don't know, if it's an ancestor that you're trying to sweeten to you to work with you, and you have a special, like, teacup of theirs.
Yes.
Or a vase of theirs.
I love that idea.
What?
That's amazing.
I have so many ideas stirring now.
I know.
Where's a pen? I need a pen.
I love having these conversations because it's like the more you talk about this kind of stuff, the more you start thinking outside of the box and outside of the traditional way of doing things.
Nice.
Yeah. I've also buried jars before, depending on the situation. Yeah. If I want to grow a relationship, I might bury the jar. So that way it's getting that energy from all those like plants and all that wildlife that's around it that's growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig.
You dig it?
I dig it.
Get it?
I didn't even realize I just made a pun.
Yeah. Let's talk about hexes a little bit.
I know very little.
I know. But there's so many different
honestly,
things or ways that you can do it that isn't like a traditional hex.
Yeah.
You know?
So things that I've done that I've never really honestly seen as hexes, I've always seen them as just like protective magic.
Yeah.
Is like binding.
Yeah.
I like doing like cord, rope, knot type of things when I'm trying to, if I feel like somebody's coming for me or has ill intent towards me.
Yeah.
And is not just like, I don't care if you just don't like me, like if it's an attack, you know?
Yeah.
Then
that requires that extra step.
Yeah. Then binding them to not be able to act against me. Even binding jars.
Yeah.
I like jars.
I
just
love
like
jar.
a container, a good container.
Yeah. Witches and jars, man.
Yeah. Burying, like you were saying,
burying
you know.
Somebody.
But if I were to do that for like a protective, I would not bury it in
your garden.
Like in my garden. It would be like, where's the darkest, dampest, like
I was gonna say
shut you down place I can bury it.
Like maybe like a cave.
Yeah.
Because to me, like a cave is somewhere you go when you want to reflect and think. And if someone is requiring what?
Putting them in magic timeout. That's what I just thought.
No, exactly. If someone...
Time out. Reflect on yourself.
I'm going to go ahead and put you a little time out. If someone is requiring a binding spell put against them, maybe they need to go ahead and think about their own actions. And what better place to do that than in a goddamn cave?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Have a good time. See you later.
Come back when you have an apology.
Yeah, come back when you've learned your lesson. Okay? I've never done one before, but I've had friends that have done mirror boxes before.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I do too. I love that idea.
Tell us more. Yeah.
So I have not had a situation that's called for that before. Usually if I am in a situation that I feel the need to use a hex, it's already gone past the point of a mirror box.
Yeah.
Right? A mirror box to me is something that you use when you've got someone in your life that is a good person, but maybe they're just not making the best choices right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe they're not making the best choices. Maybe their actions are not the kindest towards those around them. And a mirror box is another form of a magical timeout, right? So you basically put that person, whether it be their name, whether it be a poppet of them, whether it be something that you take some of their hair, however you want to go about it, and you put it in a mirror box, and you put it away. Okay, you can bury it. You can bury it. Depending on the person, I would be okay putting this person in my garden.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want them to grow.
I want them to grow. Exactly. God damn it. Fuck.
Plants are everything.
Plants are so good.
But to make them see.
Make them see their actions. Yeah. Make them reflect. Where else can you reflect but a goddamn mirror box?
Chickadee check yourself.
Chickadee check yourself. Come back when you're done. But you can usually tell, honestly. Let me actually take this sip. I'm just holding this coffee cup against my lip.
I see that. Get you some. Get you some.
Get some of that Irish coffee goodness. You can tell when that person's done.
Yeah.
Because you can see their actions change. You can see them reflecting. You can see them making better choices. And once you see that...
Bless you, Beowulf.
Bless you, Bubby. You go sneeze? Oh, good?
Oh, look at that face.
I know, he's so sleepy.
Oh.
Oh, dear can.
Oh. Excuse us while we swoon over my cat.
You can tell when that person is making better choices. And once you see that change, at that point you can remove them from the mirror box. And then cleanse it. Let them move forward. And then put your mirror box away for the next person that requires a little time out.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's like a little tough love.
It is. It is. It's like, honestly... And you do it out of love.
Yeah.
In those situations. You don't ever put someone in a mirror box that you don't love.
Yeah.
You put someone in a mirror box when you know that they're better than what's happening.
I just have fun.
Yeah.
What if... Okay, so a lot of times... hex work, I think, is seen as like super dark path, like you're doing it out of vengeance.
But it's not always.
Honestly, even if it's somebody that I'm not okay with, for me to take the time and the energy to defer them to a different path, there's honestly some light and love to that.
There is.
Because I'm saying, even if like I have no love for you, I have love for myself and for people around me to want to protect them.
Yeah.
And I care about the situation enough to
take action.
Help to guide you.
Yeah.
To make a different decision.
Yeah. There's love that's needed in that.
It's all gray.
It's all gray.
Yeah.
There is no white. There is no dark. There is no light. It is all shadow work.
There is no light.
There is no light.
There is no hope.
Cryfest 2020. Just kidding.
Yeah.
For like hex work that I've done before, I like to do cord.
Yeah.
Okay. For me too, like I've said before, herbs are a big thing that I use. I also like to use candles. I like to do a lot of candle magic. So the hex that I've done recently is not one that I found in a book. It was one that I like went on instinct with. It requires burial. Maybe if it's someone you love that you just want to bind right now, maybe it's too far past a mirror box, but you feel the need to stop them from doing what they're doing now, but you love them enough. Maybe you do a binding with cord and you bury it in your garden and let them grow. Just depends on the situation. What is your goal?
Yeah.
Like going back to that, what is your goal? And take that into account when you plan out what you want to do for this situation.
Know thyself.
Know thyself and do what thou wilt.
Yes.
Yes. Feel good about that. Yeah. So now we're gonna move into making some things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are gonna put you on pause, go get some stuff together, and we will be right back.
I need more coffee too.
Same. So I brought this little. Thanks, Mom. Okay. So I brought this little jar.
He's so cute.
This little baby jar that actually Alyssa got for me. And I'm going to start with writing my name. on this piece of paper. Piece of paper. And what I want to do is write what my goal is out of this honey jar for myself. So, not to get into any shadow work.
But why not?
Why not? So I'm going to write down what I want to feel. So I am writing, I am worthy, I am loved, I am supported, I am powerful, I am independent. I'm also going to write, it's okay to not be okay. Because I think one thing that I struggle with is while working through my emotions and working through shadow work, I get very frustrated with myself that I can't just move on and let go and be okay. And it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay because it's required for me to work through these emotions right now. And it's okay for me to feel not so great while it's happening.
To sit in the shit.
Sit in the shit, because if I did feel okay while going through all of this, something would not
be okay.
Something would be wrong with me. So I think it's actually very healthy that I feel this way. But as a reminder to myself, I am worthy, I am loved, I am supported, I am powerful, and I am independent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold this little bad boy up and put him actually at the bottom of this honey jar. That was a mistake I started when I started making honey jars, is I put the piece of paper at the top.
Ooh, and then you gotta like...
And then I had to like force it down. Yikes. I'm going to put a little bit of lavender oil on top because I also want to be at peace while going through all of this. So just a few drops of that. Okay, so I'm going to talk through all the herbs I'm going to put in here. So, vervain is first, right? Yes. So I'm going to put a little pinch of vervain. Vervain is good for protection as well as for self-love, which is something I'm really working through right now.
Mm-hmm.
Lemon balm. You want to talk about lemon balm?
Yeah, so lemon balm is great for, and smell it. It smells so fresh.
I love this because it is fresh. It's homegrown.
Lemon balm is really great for not only healing but for self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
It feels to me too, this is not necessarily a correspondence, but it is a correspondence to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels self-empowering.
Yeah. And that is definitely the aim out of this. Cinquefoil is good for prosperity, and not just like financial prosperity, but like prosperity in your life, which is what I'm really aiming for right now, is my life feeling full. Yeah. Full and full of love. So I want to add a little bit of prosperity into that. Mm-hmm. Next, we have Irish moss. Irish moss is one that's good for protection as well, but similar to like you talking about like lemon balm. Yeah. Talking about lemon balm, for me, Irish moss is another one of those that I use a lot because I do work with the Morrigan. I like to I think of Irish moss as one of my like standby herbs that I use, especially when I'm trying to call on her. Mm-hmm. She doesn't directly have like herbal kind of connotations, mm-hmm. but I always associate with this with her. So I like to use it whenever I'm doing any work with her, and I definitely want to call on her to help me work through this inner battle, because she's definitely a battle goddess. It's, one thing that she's really known for.
What you need next?
Lily of the Valley. Have you worked with this before?
No, I have not.
Okay. So Lily of the Valley is actually really good for psychic powers. Mm. It's also really good for love spells as well. So since this is something that I want to really invoke some self-love, I like to use Lily of the Valley. I also used Lily of the Valley in the poppets that we're going to be making later, as well as a good combination of most of these. I put in the poppets as well. So it
makes sense because it has some connections to Freya as well.
Yeah, so, and she's like a love goddess
Yeah.
is like what she's known for, even though that's of course not all she is, like we've talked about before.
One of many aspects.
One of many many aspects. Bay, also good for prosperity, but it's also good for instilling strength. And that's what it feels like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like strength.
Sturdy, yeah.
Sturdy.
Can I share with you when I did my journaling for my Bay?
Yeah.
Actually, one thing that I learned about Bay Laurel is that poets way back in history would the terminology is when they became successful or well known, they received their bays. So I think it has a lot to do with like that crown, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, it also feels very like ancient and sure.
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't want to say wise because that makes my mind go to like I see wise old man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
to
it
me,
feels fresher than that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. To me, I think of like a wise crone.
Yeah.
You know, like someone who's really experienced a lot, has learned a lot, and I want to kind of embody some of that energy.
But it's quick. Like it feels quick.
It feels
to me.
quicker than like an old tree feels wise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like an old tree feels like it's been there forever.
Yeah.
Whereas with Bay, it feels like
sharp,
but still strong and sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. Last, patchouli.
Of course.
Because patchouli me. So,
it's me.
It me.
Let me smell it.
Ah.
Let me smell it. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
And we're both going to be growing patchouli this season, so I'm so excited to be working, considering this plant is like everything to me, and I feel like it is me. To the point where I wear patchouli every day. And
me too.
Yeah, and it's to the point where people are like, oh, I knew you were in the elevator a minute ago because I could smell patchouli when I walked in there. Mm-hmm. It's just me.
Hashtag I sweat patchouli.
Yeah, it's who I am.
Yeah.
I am grounded and rooted, and that's patchouli. Okay, so those are all my herbs that I want to use. I'm going to go ahead and take these guys because I need you in here. I want your energy. Little lily in the valley. Okay. I'm going to sit for a minute. Now, I will be putting some Winston-Salem raw honey on top. Mm-hmm. That Alicia has so graciously let me borrow. I'm going to try to do this as least messily as possible. For anyone out there who's ever made a honey jar, you know how freaking messy they are.
Take it.
My plan for this is every night I do a tarot card pull. I probably just put Lily of the Valley in my mouth. That's fine.
Poisonous, but okay.
Poisonous, but okay. I do a daily, nightly card pull and journal about it every night. So I'm planning on implementing this into my practice. My nightly ritual is to take a moment every night and really hold on to this, really think about how I'm growing and developing as a person, and remembering that I am worthy, I am loved, and I am supported, and I am independent, and it's okay for me to not be okay. Yeah.
I love it.
I do too.
Ta-da!
There she blow! Depending on what you're doing with your honey jar, it's always good to maybe not do it every day, but kind of like we talked about in the last episode, weekly practices for your plants, weekly practices for your practice as well. So if you have a honey jar that you've been working on sweetening someone towards you, taking a moment at least every week, remembering your intention as you're holding the honey jar, really go into a meditation, kind of move it around, swirl it around, just to put your intentions back out there and keep it fresh.
I know that in the past too with honey jars, because to me it feels like if you just leave it and it stagnates.
Yeah.
I've also at times like once a week put it by the window to absorb sunlight too.
To absorb some sunlight. We're actually opening it up, putting more herbs into it, maybe putting a little bit more sugar into it just to keep it fresh and moving.
Yeah. I love it.
Me too.
It's good.
Now we make poppets. So we're gonna do another quick pause and we'll be back with poppet time, which is interesting because Alyssa makes her poppets very differently than I've only ever made one poppet before.
Yeah?
Yeah, so it's gonna be a little
Learning experience.
Learning experience.
Love it. Cool.
Cool.
All right, so last night we prepared everything with our corn husks. We put in salt, water, and the herbs for whatever our intentions are for this poppet. We buried them in our garden last night. So we're gonna dig those out and then get those prepared. So here is mine. We set that here. We'll set that on my little bay. Tori's.
Done my baby.
Put your baby in there. So just to give them a little bit of
Freshness.
growing energy.
Yes. Love.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So we're gonna bring these inside, and we are going to create our poppets.
Here we go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. So time to make the poppets.
Time to make the poppets.
We're gonna go ahead and open up our corn husks that we have soaking in our herbs and salt. All right, so we've got our corn husk out. I'm gonna go ahead and lay some of these out. So I like to start with at least 3 or 4 husks. And what I'm gonna do is kind of start to round these away from each other to start the base of the body. So I'm going to use the larger ones that I have. And drip water all over myself. And I actually need to have you, before I tie these up, I'm going to have you actually cut a little piece of my hair out of it to put it into them.
Cool.
Okay. So I've got this little braid I started here. Maybe you just want to cut.
There?
Yep, at the close to the scalp. So I'm making this. Oh, that's long.
I know.
How did my hair gets so long.
I know.
I'm making this poppet to actually put into a honey jar. So the poppet is going to represent me and what I want a person to see. So with these corn husks, what I'm going to do is I've got them facing away from each other because they're kind of rounded in shape. I'm going to place my hair down through the center of this. So then when I tie it off and flip it out, the hair will come out the top of the head.
Ooh, I like that.
Go ahead and grab some cord, cut that, and loop that over. And speaking of intention, when tying this off, instead of this being just going through the motions, when I'm doing work and creating a poppet, I like to think about, as I'm tying it, what I'm tying into the doll, you know?
Yeah.
So I've got that wrapped. Loop one of these the opposite direction. Pull that tight and start to knot that. So much fun. So I've got everything tied off with the hair in the center of this. So let's go ahead and get yours tied up. Let me cut your hair.
Cut my hair.
And then I'll show y'all the next step.
Next step. Okay.
Okay. So from here, we are going to start to fold these down and over. And this is what's going to create the head and body of our poppet. So once you have that down and over, you're just going to pinch that off whatever size head you want your poppet to have. And we're going to go ahead and tie around that as well. There she is. Or to start.
Or to start.
From there, we're going to create some arms for our puppet. So take one of your husks and just pull a little piece of that off. Okay. And then I like to fold that in half and slide that between some of those husks. So like halfway in between. And then we're going to tie off the base of that as well. And then really from there,
Thank you.
You can accessorize her as you please. I like to keep a couple additional ones because I like to make more of like a bodice skirt type thing.
Yeah.
If you want them to be wearing pants or have legs, then you can even just
like tie them off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut up there and then tie off the legs as well. You can even, before we tie off the arms, if you want to do this in one go, I have many times just placed her dress first and then tied all of that. So you don't have to do it twice, you know? So let me grab one that I have completed and dried. At this point, once you're done with it, you're going to want to let it dry. Let me grab one that I've already completed so I can show y'all dried out what it looks like. So there she is. Yum.
That's so cute.
So you can keep it as simple as you want, or, you know, really take some more time and decorate it to be whatever you want to represent. Yeah. I've even put blood inside them. Because, you know, even writing down, like, the qualities that you want that person to see on the corn husk.
Yeah.
And making the doll out of that, or even putting it into the doll, you know. There's so many options.
Yeah, there's so many different things you can do with this.
You could use different color cord depending on what you're trying to invoke or accomplish. Yeah. Like these. And just boop.
Ta-da! That was fun.
Corn husk poppets.
Corn husk.
I
like them.
Yeah. Oh. And you could even make them on a smaller scale too, like if you have a smaller jar.
Yeah.
Like what Tori used for the honey jar, if you're wanting to put the poppet into the honey jar, which is
what
the
you're gonna
intention
do
for her.
Yeah.
Or, oh no, she fell over. She's
Honey,
okay.
I know. Honey,
just
I know.
She just needs a nap. Let's just let them take a nap.
I feel you.
Or just use a larger jar for your honey jar. Hex/binding work. You can make a poppet of a person and even use quarter rope to tie the doll, like bind the doll.
Yeah.
And bury it or
Bury
burn it. Yeah. So
that's some good stuff there.
Burning's
everything.
10 out of 10 recommend.
10 out of 10 do recommend. Yeah.
So that's it.
That's it. Well, guys, this is probably a long episode. Thanks for watching.
We got carried away, but we had fun. Yeah.
We got really excited and wanted to do all the things. So thanks so much for watching. I'm covered in herb water, as you probably are as well. We may miss. So we're going to go clean this up.
Tell us about some of your practices and experiences with these kinds of things in the comments below.
Please. How do you hex? Do you hex? How do you honey? Don't forget, like and subscribe. Also, like Alyssa said, leave a comment down below, join the conversation, and don't forget, hit the little bell.
Ding ding.
To receive notifications whenever we post a new episode.
Bye.
Bye.